Look, I think it might be unfair to take this as a generalization of the war reality. The idea is right now the Taliban are enjoying a momentum handed to them by the United States administration based on its hasty and unconditional withdrawal, and after that reinforcing their sense of impending victory by releasing intelligence reports that say that the government is going to collapse in 6 to 12 months. All of that hasn't boded well with the spirits of the actual defense forces. And there are other strategic reasons as well, where the Afghan government has chosen to tactically retreat from specific districts, which has created this sense of defeatism amongst its own troops. So that's basically one of the reasons why we have low morale and spirits. But again, this is not going to be a rule. This is not going to exist too long. Eventually, the fighting will die out to a certain extent. The Eid holidays coming up as well. This has to be seen as a blitz by the Taliban movement. This has to be an offensive. It is unrealistic to believe that the Taliban can sustain this fighting for undefined periods of time. So this will eventually come down a little, and the Afghan government and defense forces just need to hold their ground and probably interact better with their own soldiers to understand better communication strategies and keep morale higher. I never said that the fighting would stop. I'm just hypothesizing that eventually we will settle on a stalemate. So we'll have an escalated stalemate in Afghanistan, but it's not going to be a total victory for either end. With regards to your question of why negotiate, again, I think that's very clear cut for the Taliban. The Taliban spent a few months trying to negotiate until their recent declaration of going to the Istanbul summit with a low-level delegation and setting impossible conditions for participating. So it looks like the group within it, or the intra-politics of the Taliban, is overwhelmingly towards the side of fighting for total control and absolute takeover of Afghanistan. Within Afghanistan as well, again, the political elites should not be spared any blame, because they have no vision for a unified peace proposal or roadmap. And before that, Khalilzad himself and the US administration, when they signed the peace deal with the Taliban, either they had a plan that didn't go right, or they didn't have a plan altogether for the intra-Afghan talks. But right now, I think it's essential to forget the prospects of peace talk, because it takes political capital. The insurgency can both fight and negotiate at the same time. The government cannot. The international community needs to take a cutthroat stance on the current escalated violence within Afghanistan, rather than sitting and hoping that things get better or one side wins, and then they have to take a moral decision on which side to support. The international community needs to step in and sanction the violators, right? The offenders, or the insurgency, because either ask them if they want to honestly and truthfully negotiate, well and good. But if that is not happening and we see it on the battlefield, then the international community really needs to pick a side. Again, I highly doubt that the Biden administration would commit the political suicide of reversing their decision. I like the conviction of your guest from Turkey with his no. But again, like, there is going to be a security vacuum. If there is going to be a civil war and escalated violence, there's always going to be room for different groups to operate. It's going to spill over onto neighboring regions. Again, the Taliban have very close familial ties with groups like Al-Qaeda. The insurgency in Afghanistan has been very fluid in its nature in the past 20 years, where fighters have been fighting like contractors and mercenaries, rather than strictly loyal to and have allegiances to groups. That means that the same fighters, and you can see this from the dossiers of a lot of prisoners that are taken in within Afghanistan. There are a lot of Taliban fighters under dossiers of Al-Qaeda and vice versa, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that it's very difficult to distinguish between them, and especially during an armed conflict of this escalation, it's going to be very difficult for the Taliban to stay true to anything that they have promised in the peace deal.